Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Mod Driven. Big question, does your hood pop? Does the hood on your Honda Civic or any other car pop? There's a couple of things I'm talking about when I mention hood pop. Yeah, that's a term I've coined right here, so this is the first place you'll hear it. Get ready, it's going to be all over the internet. A couple of things I'm talking about. One, of course, is when you pop the hood, you saw in the beginning, you get that little thud. I love that sound. It's kind of like the sound you get when you shut your doors. Ooh, like this. That is the perfect sound for door shut. I don't know. Maybe I have a mental problem. Anyway, let's check under the hood. First off, we've got the hood struts. These are awesome. They are a bolt-on application, no drilling, nothing crazy. You don't have to put pop rivets in or drill holes with nuts and bolts. They fasten right into the bracketry itself, and they work really, really well. Now, I will say one thing about these. They're not the type that are going to push until you get to a certain point. Right there, they start to ease the hood. They could be a little bit stronger, but they're still pretty darn awesome. I love the color of them. I went with the faux red carbon fiber, and it is fake. That keeps the price down, I'm sure. But just a nice touch under the hood, something that kind of makes it pop, sets it off a little bit from all the others out there that don't do anything like that. Next up, cleanliness. You need to have it clean under your hood. I mean, if you care about such things and you want to show off what you've got under here, like the hood struts or something else we're going to get to in a minute, you need to keep it clean. Pretty simple to do. Cloth, a little bit of soapy water, wipe it off. I would not spray the engine. I know there is a group out there, a segment, that says that you should take it to one of those car washes with those blaster hoses and spray everything off. Now, the problem with that for me is all of the connections and things under here. We've got all kinds of electrical connectors scattered all throughout, of course, the battery itself. I see no reason to do that. I think you run a bigger risk than it's worth. There's one there, of getting water in these connections and causing electrical problems. And I would bet you that most times when people have electrical problems with their cars, they probably are a engine blaster, somebody who pops the hood and puts that high speed or high pressure car wash nozzle on their engine to clean it off. I would never do that. Just wipe it down. Also, if you've got anything added under there, like I do, some people put switch controllers and things like that. I happen to have some garage door openers under here. Those obviously can get water in them too. If you're wondering what they're for, they are my own homemade HomeLink system. I put these in to, you can see it light up there, at least hopefully. I put these in to trigger a couple of garage doors, just so I don't have to have the clickers inside the car. Just a little homemade thing that I've done under there. Now, moving on to the next little item that makes the hood pop under here, of course, it's the cold air intake. I think as soon as anybody opens my hood, that's probably the first thing that draws the eye because of the big red filter under here. The only problem I have with this, I mean, I love the setup. I love that it matches the car. That was a stroke of luck. I just happened to find a gray one that goes really, really well with the color of the car itself. You can paint them. I've done that before. I did it in my Toyota Tacoma. Came out really well, and I'm talking about painting the tubing, of course, outside of the car, put a little primer on it, scuff it up, paint it whatever color you want. But this filter is so tight in here that it's very difficult to get out. It was difficult to get in. And I think probably the best way to get it out, and I was thinking maybe to remove this little cowling piece here, but actually there's something a little more firm under there, so it's not going to give me any more room. I actually would like to find a smaller filter so that the next time I go to change this, and I think to change it, I'm probably going to have to cut it or really push on some things. And the one thing I don't want to push on and move around is the brains of the car right here, the ECU. This is something you don't want to mess with. Going back to spraying off the engine and stuff, of course, you don't want to get water inside this or you'll have much bigger problems. But the filter, the way it's set up, is just a little bit too long. You can see it extends underneath here, and it's pretty darn tight in there. So I think I am going to look for maybe something a little bit shorter, maybe about 1.5 inches, maybe a couple of inches. And I think given the real estate that these things have, that'll be okay. Now, another thing I want to mention, this of course is not a cold air intake, it's an intake. It's not a cold air intake because it's not an enclosed box sucking in cold air to feed the engine. Kind of like what the original or the OEM was. You know, one of these sitting right over there. I think the one for the Honda's in that pile over there. But down below, there are outlets, and you can't see it, or holes rather, that force air up into the engine area. And of course, while this will suck in some of the warm air from the engine, it is going to be force-fed air from these holes underneath. So no issues there. One of the things that I watched when I first put this in was the engine temperature, just to see if it made any difference. In other words, if having this open system as opposed to the cold air intake closed system caused the engine temperature to increase at all. And I have noticed nothing. It all seems perfectly fine, no issues, no problems like that. So I think the big argument you get out there from people is that you're sucking warm air in from the engine compartment is irrelevant. It doesn't seem to make any difference whatsoever. Now, of course, there are other things you can do in here, and there are things that I think I'm going to do, either replacing hoses with different colored hoses and things like that. Of course, things like this apply to people who are really into modding the vehicle, want to make it look as pretty as it can look underneath here. You can put different colored hoses. You don't even necessarily have to take off what's there. There are wire looms out there that you can fit over these things. And the good thing about those is you're going to give it a little bit more protection. I mean, if you look right here, this little wiring bundle, it's just the wire. I mean, there's nothing protecting it here. And one big reason to protect things like this is if you park the car outside, and it doesn't even really matter if you leave it outside. Anytime it's outside, you can get critters under here, rats, mice, squirrels. Ever heard any of those horror stories about having a car that has electrical problems? They pop the hood and out runs a rat or a mouse that's been chewing wires under there. Probably not a bad reason to encase those in some sort of wire loom just to protect them. Anyway, I just wanted to get on here, show a little bit of hood pop. And I know I don't have a whole ton of things under here yet, but it's coming together and I think it looks pretty good right now. Probably could clean this wiring up for my homemade HomeLink system a little bit. We'll see. That'll be something down the road. Anyway, let me know. Do you care what it looks like under your hood? Or all that matters is that when you turn the key, it starts and you let the guys at the shop deal with everything else under there? I'd be curious to know. Also, real quick, I do have 2 additional channels. Rob Motive, all about the Toyota Tacoma, and Rob Motive JT, all about the Jeep Gladiator. Check them out, and if you're interested, why not subscribe? And while you're at it, smash the subscribe button here too. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.